Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Peter Van Praagh. He is president of the Halifax International Security Forum. Peter, we were just talking about Ukraine, and you did mention the stalemate in the U.S. Congress. Let's face it, there's a prospect of a Trump victory in November. What's the consensus of how to go forward, given that very challenging context?
Well, sadly, Tony, I hate to say that the consensus is there's no consensus.
Hmm.
And there are, if you talk privately with Republicans, they do understand the importance, and this is the party of Reagan and McCain. This is the party that has stood firm, that they do understand the importance of standing up to Russia and defending Ukraine. At the same time, the candidate, he is going to be the candidate for president, has a different view of what
Right.
should go on. And so people now are trying to figure out how to get Ukraine the resources they need without embarrassing the candidate, Donald Trump, and moving forward. So I remain hopeful that the United States Congress is going to figure this out. My understanding is that it's going to be tricky, it's going to be difficult. But now that the Europeans have approved 54 billion US dollars in
Right.
assistance, I think that actually will be a motivator for Americans who don't like to be second fiddle to anybody. So
Mm.
I'm hopeful that Ukraine is going to get the support it needs and deserves. I will say that we all have to moderate our expectations for 2024. Even with all of the support, there's not going to be a Ukrainian victory in 2024. This is going to be a year for holding firm, holding fast, adjusting strategy, and moving forward together with its European and North American allies.
Gotcha. Your slogan behind your head says "Win the war." It might be "Don't lose the war" at this point. Maybe that's the best we can hope
Well,
for.
I would say that for 2024, but I don't want to sound Pollyannish about this, but Russia is exhausted, and if we give Russia a lifeline now, it would be a terrible mistake. The pressure we need to continue the pressure. We need to continue the pressure with the folks who are supporting Russia, including China, and including North Korea and Iran. Now that it's getting missiles directly from North Korea, that is then in turn giving the North Koreans money to
Right.
make more missiles that are aimed at North America. This is a challenge for Canadians. It's a challenge for Americans, and it's really something that we all have to pay attention to. I mean, I'll just say this, Tony, and then we can move on to other things if that's what you want. Should Putin be successful in Ukraine, every other challenge for Canadians is that much more difficult.
Right.
And the converse is also true. Should Putin lose in Ukraine, every other international challenge becomes that much easier for all of us.
Last point on this particular topic, you called them the crinks. I think China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, I guess. And we're seeing an unprecedented amount of collusion and cooperation amongst those countries, this axis of resistance or whatever they self-identify as. North Korea, as an example, was a pariah even with Russia before all this started. Now they're a primary place to obtain ammunitions and other things for their war. So what was the commentary on that? That's obviously something that is of concern to democracies.
Well, this is actually a byproduct of our own success. Prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there were still people hoping that it wouldn't happen. We didn't exactly know what was going to happen, and most analysts didn't believe that Ukraine was going to stand firm. I was in Ukraine on February 24th when the war began.
Wow.
And I did sense, I don't want to say I knew anything, but I did sense that the Ukrainians were going to stand and they were going to fight. When they did that, and President Zelensky sent a signal to the world saying, "We don't need a taxi, we need ammunition. We don't need a ride, we need ammunition."
Right.
That forced the United States, Canada, and our allies to isolate Russia immediately and effectively. And it was that isolation that in turn, as you said, prior to the war, North Korea was isolated even by Russia. But it was that isolation of Russia that forced Russia then to turn to others, anyone who would help. And the Iranians and the North Koreans were all too eager to lend a hand.
Mm,
Chinese had already given tacit approval
right.
that it was okay to be made with their no limits partnership just a
Peter,
couple
we're
of
just
weeks
going to have to
before.
take a brief break. I apologize for interrupting, but hold on to that thought. We'll get right back to it. Please stand by.